The Germans started influencing the Romanians to to do things to the Jews, such that they started making anti-Jewish laws, such that they couldn't own businesses, they didn't get licenses. There was a lot of back and forth and different. So the Jews, and also they started drafting again young Jewish boys to do labor. They didn't take the Jewish girls yet, or the elderly, or whatever, but just the Jewish boys to do work in the factories and ammunitions. And because World War II had already begun in September of 1939, and then Romania was allied with Germany, and Germans wanted like forced labor. So what he did was he never got really to his friend's family, but he used the papers, because they didn't have like photo IDs in those days. If you had a stamped paper based on some signature of who you were, and my father Zaidi didn't really look dark hair, he had sort of a light hair because his father had a red beard, and you could show the picture.
Which looked like that, yeah.
So he kind of didn't look Jewish?
Well, this is. I'm just showing the
That was 1947.
Yeah, but it like an identification card would look like this. That's.
But without the photo ID.
And this was with the photo ID, and this was later.
But that's in the United States when he came to 1949.
But that's later. But it's sort of what
an ID looked like. So anyway, so he went underground with his friend's papers. That actually went underground, meaning he didn't really live at home in his parents' house for Krasna. Nobody really knew where he was because he was deserted from the army. He could have been, for all practical purposes, the authorities could have thought that he died. And the Romanian authorities. But the Germans then, already influenced the Romanians to do things against the Jews.
Yeah.
So that's why he used, to save his life, he used the papers of his friend. And he really was like a non-Jewish person. From 1940 on, he was like he was...
During 1940.
Right? 1940. So then in 41 and 42, things were very, very bad. And for example, his father died in 1941, and 1942.
Wasn't it because of natural causes?
He died from natural causes. He died at the age of 62 on a Friday night, Pashas Chayesara, which is like November time. And he died from a stroke. And the authorities, they knew, would not let them bury. Jewish people have a custom to bury right away. And they specifically, because they knew the Jewish people had that custom, they would just do it just to aggravate them and not let them bury for days and give them the opportunity. So Saturday night, late at night, in the funeral, without a funeral or without anything, a couple of young boys, together with my uncle and my father, risked their lives to bury him like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. And again, my father was incognito. But anyway, he saw that things were bad, so then after they buried my grandfather, they put a headstone there, but without permission. So these boys risked their lives to bury him. I heard this story, my father didn't tell me the story, but Lazer Lieberman, who was the president of Krasna, who passed away recently, told me the story. He was a very, very young boy at the time. Anyway, so my father runs away to his family in Hungary, thinking that things are better there, because Romanians, there was a lot of anti-Semitism, and thinking that he was going to work, because my uncle was already drafted into this.
Wait, what's his family? I thought his family lived in Romania.
Romania, right.
So why did he go to Hungary?
Went to his family because he thought that he was going to able.
Extended family.
Extended family.
Extended family.
Extended family into Hungary, and he met this. Actually, first went to the extended family in Hungary when he left Romania, because he couldn't stay in Romania because he was like a deserter for the Romanian army. One of the times later on, after things got really bad, the Hungarians found out that he was a Jewish person. So what they did was the immigration service, the equivalent, decided that he.
Well, how did they find out he was Jewish?
I'm not sure how they found out, but they found out it was just through somebody said or some other person found out that he was hanging around the Jewish underground, and so they must have told him. So the Hungarians wanted to expel him back to Romania. Since he had Romanian citizenship and he had a Romanian identity card, they wanted to expel him back. And they knew that the other papers were not legal anymore. I'm not sure how they found that out. But or he felt that he didn't need those papers anymore when he was in Hungary. He may have gotten rid of those papers. It wasn't easy to travel during the war times back and forth. So
how did he travel? Was it just on roads or through forests?
Roads and a horse and wagon, getting a ride. You paid somebody with a horse and wagon to take you here. You take or a train station, or train or horse and wagon. Mostly horse and wagon, and walking and trying to stay at this inn or hotel or person that they knew, or relative's friend, or so on. And so Hungarians decided to expel him because he was a Romanian citizen. They found out that he was a Romanian citizen, and they came to the border of Hungary and Romania. And the Romanians were very, very harsh against the Hungarians. Particularly, the Hungarians were not really felt like, since they were taken over like 20, 30 years before that, actually probably less, only about 21 years before that, right? When they carved out that part of Romania, that part of Hungary for Romania, so there's always this tension, of having, a minority of Hungarians in the Romanian government, and the Romanians were always not really friendly to the Hungarians. So even though they were on the border, but yet, since they were both allied with Hitler, they were semi-allies. So Hungary expels them to Romania. They get to the border. Romania says, "I don't want him. He's a Jew. We have too many Jews here anyway. Get him back to Hungary." It ended up that his life was really in danger, because when he was expelled, when Romania denied admission to him to come to cross the border and sent him back to Hungary, Hungary said, "What's the use? I'm not going to bother sending him back. We're just going to go ahead and kill him." So this officer, he remembers at the border, told this young soldier, border guard, to go ahead and take him into the forest nearby and shoot him. And my father, who was a little bit older than this young 18-year-old border guard soldier, saw that he was a little bit shaky. So they walked into the forest about 5 minutes, and then my father sort of pleaded with him, or sort of talked to him, and gave him.
He must have given him a sense of humanity. This is
Yeah, he said,
it's not.
What are you going to accomplish by killing me? It's going to be on your blood. Did you ever kill anybody? And he said, no. And my father said, I was in a war. I know what it's like in Romania, and I know what it's like for people to get killed and people and kill people, and it's not pleasant. And so he told the guard, "Listen, I have a plan. Shoot in the air, make believe that I overpower you. Here's my watch, and I'm gonna run away, and nobody will know the difference. And when you shoot in the air, people will think that you shot me. And here, take this watch that I was hiding from you, and just keep it." and do that. And this, luckily for my father, this young soldier didn't shoot him, just shot him into the air, and my father ran away. And ended up going back to Romania and met in the underground again. Somehow he got different papers to be underground, and so he was sort of like acting incognito. It wasn't easy to talk to my father about all these stories, because later on in 1940, May of 1944, was they again, this part of Romania then actually Hungary accomplished that area got ceded back to Hungary. And in Hungary they were deporting Jews en masse, first into a ghetto for 6 or 7 weeks, and then from 6 and 7 weeks after that to the concentration camps. And the concentration camps were long train rides, and people didn't, like you hear in the history, they packed these into cattle cars, old men, women, children.
80 people per car.
Yeah, it was really very bad. They packed them into cattle cars. The young boys were already drafted into these worker camps if they caught you. And they knew who you were. My father was not drafted into the worker camps because he was underground. He was working on somebody's other papers and identity papers, and he had heard that my grandfather had already passed away, so it was my grandmother and her 3 daughters and a grandson, Mendele, Menachem, who was named after Shmuel's father, Menachem. And in those days, Menachem was a Hebrew name, Mendel was like a Yiddish name. They added like Menachem Mendel, Menachem. So his name was Mendele. He was like 3 years old. And he was Rivka, my father's older sister's son. So they were all deported. Luckily, they all survived Auschwitz. And they came in front of Mengele, and my Aunt Gita, who you met, was the only survivor of that story. I'll tell you why. Because they took able-bodied people, and people from the ages of
15 to 40.
15 to 40. So the young girls had to be puffed up to be a little older, to be 15, and they said 15 instead of 12, 13, or 14. And if the people that were 40, 45 had to say they were under 45 in order to survive, they all knew that. But my grandmother was over 40. My 3 aunts, Rivka, who was the mother of Mendele, was sent to work on one side. Right there, they separated you, right when you came off the cattle cars. And there were Jewish prisoners that were helping the Germans separate each side. My Aunt Gita, who was like 16, 17, and she was strong, she went to the worker side together with Rivka. My Aunt Malka, who was like 13, 14, who was very, very skinny and not really healthy. It was war times, you really didn't get healthy food. She was sent with my grandmother and with the 3-year-old baby to the left side. They didn't know, standing there, what was going to happen on each side, but they knew that the people that were going to work were going to.
But there was.
So there was a Jewish prisoner. So my aunt Rivka was separate, saw that she was being separated from her baby, wanted to pull away from the work side to go to her little baby, who my grandmother was holding, because she wanted to go to be with her little son.
Rivka was the mom.
Rivka was the mom of the 3-year-old.
But she was 14.
No, Malka was 14. Rivka was the older, was older. My father's older sister.
Malka was 30.
No. Rivka was the mother of the baby Mendele. She was married. She was like my father, a year or 2 older than my father.
Was she strong? Could she work?
Yes. She was like 26, 27 or something like that, and she could work. Yes. and she was like older than my father at the time. And so she wanted to go, but she didn't want to be separated from her baby, Mendela, right? So she goes ahead and she wants to go, and a Jewish prisoner wanted to save her life by pulling her back. A Jewish woman was pulling her back. Don't go to your baby. And Gita's watching this happen unfold. And then a German officer saw that this Jewish prisoner was holding back Rivka from going to the other side. So the German officer hit the Jewish prisoner, knocked her down, and said, "Let her go to hell." And Rivka ran to the other.
The German officer said,
"Let her go to hell." And so she ran to the other side to be with her 3-year-old child and her mother and her baby sister, younger sister, and they all perished that next day. They were gassed immediately. The Jewish prisoner. A Jewish prisoner got hurt. Anyway, so she let go. Rivka ran to the other side to her mother, to the baby, and they perished within a day. Of course, they were sent to the showers. The showers were really gas. They were gassed. They were killed there, and then they were burnt in the ovens.